This is a Clouds weather alert.
Meteorologist Casey Cloud live here in the Weather Center on this Tuesday afternoon, tracking a severe thunderstorm warning for portions of Duval County, right there toward the Jacksonville Metro until about 5:15. So this storm acts and really impacting traffic here as it builds toward rush hour. We really got to pay attention to that. I know we're in alert mode because of the heat. This is helping cool things off in the spots where the storms, are happening. But other spots here are still warm, and they could ultimately I see the conditions be favorable for some storm development. We have more moisture today. That's made the heat index higher and made us get a excessive heat, extreme heat warning for many parts of our area here. So even more so than, the coverage we had on that Monday. So that's a storyline that's worth noting. Definitely that fuel here for these storms. Tracking this carefully. Trying to give you guys the very latest on what's going on. I know as we kind of look at the situation here, you can see some of these brighter greens here, indicative of some stronger winds, even some blues here trying to show up, even outside of the warning boxes. This action's been kind of shifting around pretty rapidly, to be quite honest, here over the last several minutes. Been watching the situation very carefully here, and we've had the action kind of, as I'll loop it around here, you'll be able to see all this wind energy kind of shifting to brighter colors indicative of the stronger wind. And we do have flash flood warning. This has come out now for parts of Duval County as well, it would seem. So let me go ahead and switch over to the mode here. You'll see that green box pop up there, and there you go. You now have a flash flood warning for parts of Jacksonville as well until 6 o'clock at 4:35. I know that was issued there. So let me go ahead and give you information on that. I'll go ahead and put that precautionary information up on the screen. At 4:35, Doppler radar indicated thunderstorms producing heavy rainfall across the warned area between a half an inch and an inch and a half, inches, of rain there have fallen. And additional amounts of 1 to 2 inches are possible in the warned area there. Flash floods either ongoing or expected to begin shortly. This, can be, an area where we really have it being more flood prone, especially as, we're right there toward rush hour. McCoy Creek will be impacted, according to Weather Service in Jacksonville. From McCoy Creek, this includes the intersection of McCoy Creek Boulevard and Keene Street there. Jacksonville and Riverside, I know we had those areas impacted. So, radar indicated flash flooding potential there right in toward Duval County. I know it's not just extreme amount of rain, but it's enough to cause problems here in these type of instances in the urban area, where things don't drain as well. As I loop back our velocity mode here again, you see what's going on in the overall grand scheme of things. It looks like some of that wind energy is honestly translating already toward the west a little bit. But this is some nasty weather, that flooding potential coming into play. Let me go ahead and jump on over here. You see to the other mode, that is where we have the temperatures displayed. You see 100 degrees in Gainesville there in Alachua County. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. Road 97 here east of Stark into toward Bradford County, as we're monitoring the situation very carefully. So that kind of tells the weather story. I know it got pretty high already around Central Florida. With some of the storm action here, 409, a 55 mile an hour gust there, as we're looking in that vicinity. But yeah, this heat, causing some problems here, more moisture today, and we have energy values that are very high, in the purple especially. And now we have this storm development being an issue. I know these heat index values even higher. It's the areas we haven't had a storm that's getting hotter, but some of you want the storms to cool things off, sure, but you don't want them to be too crazy here because these can definitely be damaging here in nature. I know we have a new severe thunderstorm warning just west of the area until it'll be 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central Jackson County. Accident there moving west at 10 miles an hour though, apparently. As you kind of see a meander around there, you see some stuff north of Perry into toward Taylor County. Some wind enhancement there. as we watch the situation not moving very much. Some of this stuff could cause some flash flooding, like we're seeing the potential for in Duval County. You see some lightning though in Marion County, southern Flagler County, northern Flagler County. I mean, you look in Columbia County there, so just kind of trying to give you guys the very latest on what's going on. Again, very warm temperatures when you're not getting that rain. You know, it's just extremely hot. There's a heat warning, an extreme heat warning for a reason. Gotta take things very seriously, obviously, in this type of setup. I know anything that gets going though can be pretty strong already with just the energy around, the heat around. I'm looking toward Duval County JA power outage mapping. Just trying to get an idea on some of that here behind the scenes. But over 1,000 customers already in the dark there in Duval County. So that is noteworthy, I know, for like football practices, you know, high school practices. So whenever that thunder roars, you gotta get indoors. I mean, it's, you know, already a situation where you're really having to watch the weather because of the heat. But then, you know, when you have the lightning here, the electrical energy, and, you know, both can be deadly, you know, more so, you know, the heat in a silent type of way, though the lightning, you know, it's something we could get a boat pretty far away, about from the bloopers, say, you know, a few to several miles away from a storm, and kind of catch you off guard as well. So you gotta be weather aware here. I know, you know, you try to put up with the weather, and a lot of times it's all right, but other times not so much. You gotta take these situations seriously as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. Let me go ahead and pull up a traffic camera right now as we look toward part of Jacksonville. You see it's a slower go than normal there, I-10. You see folks with their lights on as warranted. You know, they're very much warranted in this type of scenario as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. Let's get back to the warning and, you know, just temperature map, radar map there. You do see here toward Duval County, looking at the rotation tracker, we've had a little but not overwhelming rotation. There's a lot of wind showing up. It seems like we're just a thunderstorm warning is, so things aren't as nasty as they were, you know, with the wind energy, and this could just continue to shift, but that flooding threat is increasing a little. You see the rainfall amounts go up there right near I-10 and toward, you know, that part of Jacksonville connecting over to I-95 for sure. As we go ahead and get a look at some views here of the situation. Some very highly populated areas right where you already have a lot of traffic anyway, and this add, you know, to the troubles here, obviously. Let me go ahead and pull up some more views here. You can see slow go, gotta watch out, you know, for more of that water to accumulate here for sure as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. I know we have one severe thunderstorm warning earlier on north of Tallahassee. It wasn't enough to go on for that, but you know, we posted about it on Facebook there and on Twitter/X, you know, as we give you the latest information in terms of all of that. As we go ahead and keep on looking, keep on tracking things here this afternoon. Had a hail report out of that storm there in the part of Grady County. It started on 155, so that was interesting there. Lasted for a little while until about the time the warning got issued out that way, according to what the storm report says. But again, continuing to give you guys the very latest. I don't see a lot of that wind anymore now. Warning, you know, there is some of it in the northern fringes, maybe, but just take that into account as we're looking there toward I-295. You know, as you're looking there toward parts of 95. We are close to the radar with this. We'll have to watch for other storms here to get, you know, more serious and prompt some other warnings. So just make sure you're aware of that potential here. These storms can be very dangerous, very disruptive here, very noteworthy for sure. as we're tracking things. You see northern Columbia are getting some indications of hail there. Eastern Hamilton County, that could end up getting a warning. We South Sea. And, other storms that develop in this environment could as well. It's 99 at Waycross, 99 Cross City, 100 degrees the actual air temperature in Gainesville. I know we're looking at different things here, different metrics. You see the heat index here, 118 in Cross City. That's extreme. 117 parts of Glenn County, Georgia. So that tells a story as we're tracking things. It's not as sunny as it was earlier on around Stark, but let me go ahead and pull up the camera. Bear with me, and we're under the extreme heat warning here. You see, maybe even looks like a little bit of rain there. Yeah, it's starting to fall on the camera now. That'll start to cool things off, maybe pretty rapidly. We're at 95 right now. We got 101 today. Got 100 yesterday, 101 on that Sunday. I know we thought maybe, in some spots it proved to be the case where it didn't get quite as warm today, but the heat index values were, higher because of more moisture around. But some spots actually didn't get as hot as they've been getting generally the last couple of days, and you had more moisture, which makes it feel even worse. So now you're starting to get some warm weather relief with some of this precipitation, as you see here live on the camera. It's pretty light right now, but you're seeing some of that precipitation. Just dropped 3/10 of a degree here in the last, several seconds real quick here with our thermometer reading. I know this might be kind of an interesting exercise here because I'm not overly concerned about the warnings right now. The heat warning probably is a bigger concern for the areas that haven't cooled down yet. That severe warning, it looked like it kind of might have been severe before we even had the warning out there. It looked, I was getting ready to go on because I saw some stuff that didn't look maybe quite to the, 58 miles per hour criteria, but it, looked like it was right there on the edge, but not so much now, even though we do have the warning. It doesn't look as impressive in Duval. So let me go ahead and continue to give you guys the latest. I'm just going to demonstrate here live on the air while we're still with you for a little longer. Sticking with this, I just want to kind of demonstrate the temperature drop here, as it happens per se. So I'm going to put up our thunder in the background here. East Stark now. Let me just go ahead real quick. I'll switch to a different source. We'll do that. You see some of that storm accent here in the vicinity. Not severe, not overly strong, but it can still be dangerous because of, the lightning around. Some outflow boundaries too. I'm just checking some things here, updating some things. So again, just trying to give you the latest. Just updating some things here. Switching over to the camera. So there you go. It's 94, but it's not going to be 94 for long. Here east of Stark, we're going to get that cooling air coming in. It's because of that precip cooling things off. Again, just updating some things here. We'll have a full update late tonight. Tomorrow, heat advisory, but not a heat warning here. Just kind of, gets away from the heat warning, conditions here pretty rapidly when that rain cools things. Obviously, some breezy conditions here as well. Now it's 93 degrees. As I update that for you, looking at my thermometer, it's going to keep dropping pretty rapidly here. Heat index still 113 on my reading, but it was a good bit higher than that. It's going to keep dropping. Severe thunderstorm warning for Duval. I believe they've canceled that. They have. The flash flood warning still stands. But I think it's just kind of interesting to watch this temperature drop in real time here. You know, the heat's been the big story here. You know, first ever 100-degree reading there at the Tampa measuring site back on Sunday. We still have a heat wave, but we're kind of, you know, we've reached the peak of it, and now we're starting to go back down it in real time here in Stark. We had our peak here probably this afternoon at the highest temperature, as I'm looking. Technically it was Sunday 101.0 today. It's got to 100.7, but the humidity was higher in general today. So had that peak of the heat wave, you know, with the rain coming in, it's cooling things off. It's now 92 on the current temperature. As things keep falling live in real time, we reached 100.7 here east of Stark. As we had the severe thunderstorm warning up in Jacksonville, that's dropped off the board. That's why I kind of switched topics here. You know, as we continue to watch, continue to track here, watching the temperature drop in real time. As we, you know, this is not something, you know, we really reach that often as high as we do. And then now we get the rain to kind of cool things off here. Pretty heavy as we're looking at things, and as we're tracking, technically heat warning till 7 for heat index, but you know, it's going to be humid with the rain, but temperature dropping pretty rapidly because of a lot of spots getting that precip, as we talked about last week. You know, the higher rain chance, but the more moisture, higher heat index was the story. And now the actual temperature falling enough where the heat index won't be overwhelming. It'll still be pretty nasty though, because it's still, you know, moist out there, even feeling more moist there with the precip. Dropping again now down to 91 on the latest reading. As we continue to watch the thermometer here, I'm looking at data in real time here. I'm looking at it behind the scenes and updating it on the graphic. Still a flash flood warning for Duval County, by the way, right there toward the McCoy's Creek area there. But not necessarily, you know, getting the severe wind potential out of that anymore. We had some pretty nasty winds in spots, maybe even before, you know, in Jacksonville, we had a warning come out. We have to watch for some of this to develop so rapidly. It might be kind of hard to get the warning out because the environment's just so, you know, wound up with all this heat here today. No warning in Stark except for the heat, you know, warning. But that's, you know, that's when it's starting to subside as you're seeing it, you know, rain in real time here. Another temperature update. We're now at 90 here east of Stark. Again, dropping in real time. You know, meteorological experiment pretty much live on the air here in Bradford County. That rain dropping that air temperature and that air temperature reading. Only a few hundred sun up on the gauge so far, but the cloud cover, the moisture, you know, helping to kind of, you know, drop that reading here pretty rapidly, though, to be quite honest. You know, not something that we're too concerned with, but the worst wind potential right now. We've been watching the country, probably in northern Louisiana this afternoon, 70 mile an hour gusts or so. Ouachita Parish area around Monroe. You know, that's kind of, you know, look at my alert board, kind of leading with a story across the country in the short term on the hyper local level. As we keep watching our number to get over to, got to 100.7 earlier east to start, but that rain now cooling things off. It's sort of erasing heat because of that rain. You know, not quite as warm as, quite as extremely hot as Sunday. We got to 101, but today 100.7. Not much of a difference. Yesterday it was 100, somewhere in there on that gauge. It didn't quite get, you know, I think it was 100.3 maybe, but 3 days up 100. That did not happen much. It happened at Jacksonville Airport too. I believe Gainesville might have had 3 days in a row as well. Not often, you know, you have to go back. I was, I think, 2010 for 2 days of it, but You know, we thought some areas wouldn't get quite as hot today. That's the case because of the storms coming in earlier, but other areas did get as hot, and the humidity, or near as hot, and the humidity made it feel worse. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put this in here, 89. That's our new number. As the temperature keeps falling a bit, I mean, there's a chance that the rain acts and moves away. You know, if we don't just get socked in with a whole bunch of this, it could kind of start to fluctuate back upward eventually. Let's see. Now 88 degrees on the newest update. As I keep looking back at my weather station to kind of get an idea of what's going on. You see that wind picking up right on the edge of this here in eastern Bradford. Not overly strong or severe, but we're just kind of focusing on that temperature drop with this. Getting some stronger winds up near Jacksonville Airport now based on the Doppler, just the westerly of it. Again, looking at everything in real time. 87 degrees now. It's kind of interesting to watch the temperature trends. Let me pull up radar here for a moment. On the current temps for here in Bradford, where we're at, east of Stark. See this lightning here? Nothing overwhelming with the wind sickness or that lightning can always be deadly here, just whenever thunder roars going indoors. Looking up toward Duval and Nassau there, you see some lightning. A little bit of wind enhancement there in Nassau. Have to watch that. You see some stuff in Columbia and Suwannee counties there. Wind enhancement north of White Springs. We'll have to see if that strengthens. Warnings west of our area in the Dothan / Panama City, I guess you could say TV market. You know, as we're looking at Jackson County is what I kind of mean by the Panama City market. Some storm action down here kind of further to the south. Don't see as much with it now, but down to 86. East of Stark. Wind still kind of a factor. Heat index down to 101 on the reading, you know, combining the heat with the humidity there. You're looking at your dew point factor there, obviously. Just kind of measuring that moisture level to see how it feels. You know, George Wonderland coming up with, you know, a lot on that years ago to try to help the viewer understand, calling it the humidity. You know, coming up with that, you know, idea there. But these are the 70s there, legendary meteorologist there from Jacksonville, WJXT. I know, let me go ahead and say here that flash flood warning for parts of Duval. You see how the rain rates are dropping within that, which is good news. Some areas are in the red, picking up a couple inches, maybe even, you know, close to a few if that's underdoing it some. As we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. But again, the temperature reading on the screen, that is for right where we're at, east of Stark, right near that, you know, lightning area that Roy's pronounced we're kind of on the western edge, where we have some of the heavier rain at times, but not consistently. Not yet. Let's check the movement on this here real quick. Kind of just meandering around, kind of going northwest, I guess you could say. .85 now, the current temperature. That keeps on dropping. I know our camera aperture at some lighting, you know, of the, you know, sky kind of contrast and mixing it up just a little bit. But it's kind of interesting to watch that temperature drop, you know, so quickly in real time, you know, here live. That's, you know, sometimes if it's heavier than, you know, be dropping even quicker. It's kind of an interesting meteorological tidbit. You don't normally get that high to be able to then drop like that. You know, here when you're in that range. I mean, you can be a little cooler and drop like that, or even you know, even quicker, but you don't generally have close to 100, 101, and then have some of that drop here. Different boundaries, different, you know, areas of moisture playing a role here for sure. We're going to see kind of a boundary coming off of this actually. This is live, and I back it up. You can kind of see here a couple frames ago, and just kind of watching here. You see some things that's, you know, that could be a trigger for more storm development, but also can kind of, you know, play a role with temperatures here, just and dropping things. Only got 4/100ths of an inch, but so far at least. But it's, you know, doing a roll here. There's more development's definitely possible later on, but it's playing a role in dropping temperatures, you know, in spots pretty rapidly. This area, you know, areas under that will drop even quicker. You know, maybe if you get quite a bit of that rain, maybe you get pretty far down in the 70s even. As we look at things and as we track them. Now it's 84, so I think I've pretty much proven the point with the temperature, you know, metric there, but again, just continuing to watch things, continuing to track them here in toward the weather center. You know, we're just gonna go ahead and start to wrap it on up, I think. Let me go ahead and take this off the screen here so we can just kind of see the rest of the area in general here a little bit better. You see some stuff in Central Florida. They've had big heat down there, and they had some storm development. Have quite a few warnings just west of the area in the yellow boxes for severe conditions. The one warning we had, you know, earlier for severe in Duval, that dropped off, but we still have a flash flood warning. You know, that rain rate's dropping in that vicinity there. You know, this is the earlier rainfall in the last hour, a couple inches in that polygon, you know, urban area. McCoy Creek, it floods more, you know, more often there. It's more flood prone, and we got to watch for more of these becoming a little bit stronger. Still hot in Gainesville, the airport there, 98 degrees. They haven't seen that temperature reduction, you know, as we're looking and as we're tracking things. That's going to do it for now. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. But just wanted to kind of, you know, that area in Duval was kind of, it was iffy looking even before they issued the warning. Once they issued the warning, you know, may have held on for just a little while, but then it kind of fell off with the wind potential, but that rain. Stuff can change so rapidly this time of year in the summertime patterns. You just got to always remain alert. You know, really, whenever a thunder roar is going towards, that's such an important takeaway here. Very important takeaway message for sure. So we're just watching things. We're tracking things here. You see the different wind directions here, the convergence, you know, causing the storm accent here. One of the, you know, big triggers here, but you have to have the moisture, and we've seen that around here today. For sure, and the heat, the energy. So, not everything in play. I mean, these aren't just the most overwhelming storms. We don't have every warned, you know, storm here, kind of just taking over the map here per se. What I mean by that, we don't have just, you know, boxes on every storm. But definitely some of them have caused some issues and concern here. So, you know, but not every storm's warned. Down to 83 now. Here's this target. That temperature drop continues. We'll be back here as needed. Otherwise, we'll be back with a full report later tonight. Your late Tuesday, early Wednesday update. So just keep it tuned here for the latest.